So it was just over a week ago, wasn't it, that Piers Morgan stormed off the set of Good Morning Britain and then later that day decided that he was going to quit as a result of being asked to apologise for something that he'd said about Meghan Markle by the chiefs at ITV. Now, this morning, as if by magic and as if by illustration of how without Piers Morgan they can't really do what they used to do, Patsy Palmer from EastEnders appeared on Good Morning Britain with Ben Shepherd and Susanna Reid. And here's what happened.
Have Addict to Wellness Guru on the bottom of the screen.
Well, huge apologies for that.
My issues that I had years ago that were talked about by me many, many years ago, and it's over. So
I'm so sorry about that, Patsy. Huge apologies. We didn't. It wasn't our intention to upset you. That's obviously a quote from Patsy's book, and as she's talked about in the past, certainly wasn't our intention.
Well, it might not have been Ben Shepherd's intention to upset Patsy Palmer, but what that illustrates to me is how they cannot operate as a kind of cheeky, tabloid, edgy television show without Piers Morgan. Because here's what Piers Morgan would have done. Piers Morgan would have said, Patsy, look, that's ridiculous. I'm not having that. He would have pointed at the screen. He would have said, get that off there now. They described her as an addict, which he didn't like. And he would say, who's responsible for that? And whether it would be something serious or not, he would have somehow got the situation back. He would have said, do not ever put anything like that up on the screen ever again when we're interviewing very important people like Patsy Palmer, who's gone off to America to make a new life for herself. And he would have rescued the situation and she would have given them the interview. Instead of which, she did, in her words, a Piers Morgan and walked off. Let's talk now to Mark Borkowski, branded PR guru, to tell us exactly what he makes of it all. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Well, they say a week is a long time in politics. It's quite a long time in television these days, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I guess that was always going to be the danger. Once someone as prominent and prolific and as influential as Piers Morgan demonstrates what can be done to his own channel by walking off, excuse me.
Now, that's possibly the best interruption I think I've ever heard. Is this you're walking off into some kind of sunset scenario?
Yeah, no, that's Mountains and Streams. It's John Barry.
Very good.
I'm not sure whether I've got the rights to use it, but I do, Mike. So no. So once you've drawn a line in the sand such as that, you've neutered the whole impact of the program. And arguably, Piers Morgan has neutered his impact as well, because I think a lot of people who face difficult questions from Piers Morgan will also do a Piers Morgan to him.
Right.
But, people are very, very sensitive about their past, particularly in the public life, when they've gone through huge amounts of attention and critique from newspapers and from the crowd from what they've done. And I guess it's been a very difficult journey for Patsy Palmer over the years. And to have that thrust up, which is an unfortunate soundbite, and you do get terrible captions thrown up on TV shows. So the junior caption writer, whoever wrote or conceived that caption, his head or her head will roll today. But it just shows the struggle Good Morning Britain's going to have without Piers.
Yeah, but I think that's it, because my point really is that if he had been sitting there, he would have done what I've just suggested he would have done, I'm sure, because I know him pretty well, as you do. And he would have rescued the situation, because with his skill at being an editor of a tabloid newspaper, which is, as you know, comes with its own difficulties. I mean, Richard Madeley tells a great story of when he and his wife were out in California. Piers got sent a set of pictures of the two of them, and they weren't particularly flattering. And in the end, Piers bought the pictures, and they didn't agree to do an interview, but he bought the pictures and dumped them anyway, just didn't use them. So you've got to sort of have that kind of very skillful ability, to publicise things about people they don't like, but still keep them on site.
Yeah, live TV is really tough, and sort of editing on the go is a real skill. And also, having instructions barked in your ear from the gallery. Very few people can manage live TV well, but certainly your point is well made. I think if he had seen that caption, if he'd seen it in advance, he would have said, look, we're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Ironically, obviously, if he was still on the programme, he wouldn't have walked out, and there wouldn't be an excuse for Patsy Palmer to walk. But it's given an opportunity for many of those sort of people who find difficult questions difficult captions, being pitched against somebody else in the studio, an opportunity to put down the mic and the earpiece and walk out.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, I mean, you say that some people may now do that to Piers. I'm not sure they will, because it's quite a hard thing to do to somebody as big as he is, whereas you can do it to Ben Shepherd and nobody really gives a stuff.
No, I think a politician is definitely going to take the opportunity if the questions and the inquisition is too great for them. I think a lot of people would have liked to find themselves in a situation where they can walk from interviews. We've seen it not too often, frankly. So you're right. It is when you're frozen in the confines of a studio, you might think you want to do that, but it's incredibly difficult to have the courage to do that. Somehow you're just sort of trapped by the lights of a camera, and you have to carry on and regardless. And I don't think it's particularly professional either for any politicians to do that. They've got to face a question and have an answer for it. And if they're not well prepared to be able to deal with that answer, more fool them.
And also, I think we all now know there was an awful lot more to Piers storming off the set of GMB than just having a row with Alex Beresford, because there was clearly an awful lot more going on in the background, given that he'd had to make his previous statement, which was obviously, he was asked to do, about sort of clarifying the whole mental health thing. So, I mean, it wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just he got fed up with the way somebody was talking to him. I mean, it was a kind of culmination of a lot of things.
The rumour is he was possibly set up, that he wasn't going to budge on his point of view.
Right.
Brailsford is obviously, very, he's seasoned in this argument. He has a lot of fans on the programme, and I guess Piers could see what was coming in front of him when, there was that very passionate response to Piers' line of questioning. So I would have felt that that was possibly, and continuing frustration, getting up that early in the morning, putting that amount of energy in. It's a very difficult gig to do, breakfast, and particularly, wanting to be prepared in the way that Piers Morgan would professionally prepare himself. I don't think he needs a team of researchers who do a lot of the stuff on the hoof, self-editing. He's a talent. Love him or loathe him, he's Marmite. He's a talent, and
well, he's also box office. They've lost 500,000 viewers since he left. So I mean, the question has to be asked. Does GMB survive it? Doesn't it?
I think that it's going to have to think very, very carefully about how it moves forward and who is going to take it, because also it affects Susanna. There was a fantastic relationship between Piers and Susanna, and she must be pretty unnerved and possibly,
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think who's going to follow? It's always difficult. In footballing terms, I always thought David Moyes got handed a pretty, muddy stick at the end of the day, because inherited an ailing team that Alex Ferguson sort of handed him. The succession is sometimes very difficult for the people filling in the boots, because you're always going to be compared.
Yeah, well, that's why I think they're going to
have a tough job, aren't they?
Well, that's why I think they're going to end up eventually having to have a conversation about changing the format and not trying to replace Piers, because he's not really replaceable, with Susanna, and doing something completely different.
Well, maybe they may revert to a softer edge that they have with the opposition on BBC Breakfast. Obviously there's going to be more promotion coming out of COVID. There's going to be a lot more. There'll be a different set of stories to pull together, different types of interview. So they possibly. As we finally shake this off, people want a different type of program to wake up to in the morning. That is.
Well, you know what? I mean, here's one for you, and you may not think this is quite as outlandish as it might sound. Why don't you just put Holly and Philip Schofield in there?
Well, I mean, isn't that all under scrutiny at the moment? If you read the headlines about, the unease that there is with Holly, with her agents and her contract, I mean, there's another story going down there.
Well,
I think I'd put money on the fact that it's going to be more representative of the times, possibly a BAME host. So it gives an opportunity for Good Morning Britain to virtue signal, like most broadcasters are doing at the moment.
Indeed. I've got a message for you from Kevin O'Sullivan, by the way. It's a phone violation by Mark Borkowski on my show. So you can consider yourself yellow carded by Kevin.
Kevin is up this early. He's still in the hangover.
That's very harsh indeed. Don't give away secrets. Mark, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Mark Borkowski there, brand and PR guru, on the problems that they're having at GMB, because of course they're going to be suffering massively since Piers Morgan left, because they don't know how to do what he did, and they haven't got anybody there that knows how to do what he did. And I think they're in quite a bit of trouble. 500,000 viewers later. We're going to get them all over here soon.